Hello everyone, it's a pleasure to be part of Nuxt Nation 2024. My name is Benjamin, I'm a software engineer at Nuxt Labs and the author of Nuxt UI. I'm excited to share with you today what we've been cooking up for the future of Nuxt UI. Nuxt UI is a Vue component library. It comes with over 50 accessible and customizable components styled with Tailwind CSS, and it provides everything you need to build modern web apps. Since its launch 18 months ago, we've reached over 4,000 GitHub stars, more than 1.5 million NPM downloads, and we've built an amazing community of over 150 contributors. For the past 7 months, we've been working on rebuilding Nuxt UI from the ground up. We now use Radix Vue as our core component foundation. This gives us access to rock-solid primitives to build on. It fixed our headless UI pain points and unlocked tons of new features. We now also use TanStack Table for our table component. It's a headless UI library for building powerful tables with lots of features. We use Embla Carousel for our carousel component. It's a library with great fluid motion and awesome swipe precision. We've upgraded to Tailwind CSS v4 Alpha, which was announced in March 2024. It's up to 10 times faster and introduces a CSS-first configuration approach using native CSS features. We've adopted Tailwind Variants. It's a powerful variant API library for Tailwind CSS, and we use it to manage our design system. It provides first-class variant support, responsive variants, slots for component composition, and automatic class conflict resolution. And it makes styling way easier and more maintainable. Thanks to Daniel Rowe, you can now use Nuxt UI in any Vue project without Nuxt by adding the Vite plugin and the Vue plugin in your configuration. This includes auto imports, component registration, and full theming support. We've also integrated the Nuxt DevTools to give you a better developer experience. You can now preview and edit the Nuxt UI component props in the DevTools and copy the generated code in your app once you're done. We took TypeScript to the next level with full auto-completion for component props based on your theme. We have intelligent suggestions for your theme configuration and improved type inference for slots and events with generic-based components. We've also made sure to cover all components with tests to ensure stability and reliability. We have more than 900 tests for Nuxt and for Vue. Last month, we released the first alpha version of Nuxt UI v3. You can install it using the npm next tag. Then you register, as usual, the Nuxt UI module in your Nuxt config. And you import Tailwind CSS and Nuxt UI in your CSS. You might also want to wrap your app with the UApp component to provide global configuration and make tooltip and tests work. And that's it. You can now start using all the new components. Last week, we released the Alpha 8 package, which lets you use Nuxt UI in any Vue project. You can also install it using the npm next tag. You add the Nuxt UI Vite plugin in your Vite config. Then you add the Nuxt UI Vue plugin in your main.ts. And finally, you import Tailwind CSS and Nuxt UI in your CSS. Now let's talk about the theming. So Tailwind CSS v4 takes the first CSS-first configuration approach. You can do everything in your CSS without the need of a Tailwind config file. You now customize your theme with CSS variables inside a theme directive. It's the equivalent of the theme.extend in Tailwind v3. In this example, we're adding an 8 pixel width. We override the default font and we override the default green color. You can also use the source directive to look for Tailwind classes in files that are not automatically detected. This can be useful with Nuxt content, for example, when you write classes in your Markdown. You can use the plugin directive to import Tailwind CSS plugins. NuxtUI provides a flexible design system through CSS variables. By default, you have access to 7 color aliases based on your Tailwind CSS colors. You can change them at runtime in your app config. The primary color is used as the default color for all components. The error color is used automatically in form components when a validation error occurs. The neutral color is used for backgrounds, text, borders, rings, and so on. And the other ones are not directly used in the theme, but you can use them as you want. These aliases are used to generate the theme of components and will be available through the color prop. Unlike NuxtUI v2, these color aliases are not automatically defined as Tailwind CSS colors to avoid conflicts. This means you won't be able to write this class like you used to. You can now use the generated CSS variable by NuxtUI, or you can use the design token that allows you to configure which shade to use in light and dark mode. However, you can put back the NuxtUI v2 behavior by defining the primary color yourself, for example. This will allow you to write the text primary 500 and text primary 400 like before. NuxtUI provides a set of design tokens to style your components globally. These tokens offer control over text, background, borders, and are used all across the theme. You can override these tokens in your CSS for light and dark mode, and it will affect all components. NuxtUI components are still using the Tailwind Variants API. They have slots, which represent distinct HTML elements or sections within a component. Let's take the card, for example, which has a root div and 3 slots. Its theme defines the styles for the root, header, body, and footer slots. Components can also have variants, which change the style of slots based on props, like the avatar component, for example, which has a size prop. The size of the root slot will be changed based on the size prop value. Now that you know how the component's theme is defined, you have 3 ways to customize it. I want to highlight before that Tailwind merged is used under the hood by Tailwind variants, so the class you pass to the components are smartly merged. You can override them globally in your app config, where you define the slots and variants we've seen just before. You can override a component slots using the UI prop. This will have precedence over the global configuration you did in your app config. And finally, you can use the class prop to override the root slot of the component. NuxtUI is fully integrated with the Nuxt ecosystem. It automatically installs the Nuxt icon module for you, which gives you access to over 200,000 icons from Iconify. Anthony made a complete refactor of the module a few months ago to better support server-side rendering, which you might have seen in his talk yesterday. And this integration lets you use the icon component anywhere in your app with any icon you want. You might find icon props on components that you can pass an icon from Iconify also. And finally, you can use the icon.js org app to browse all icons available. Do note that you might have to install the Iconify JSON collection to build your app. NuxtUI also integrates with Nuxt fonts made by Daniel Rowe, who gave a talk about it yesterday. This module is automatically installed and configured to work with CSS variables, so you just have to declare your font in your CSS, and it handles all the loading and optimization for you. In this example, we're using the public sans font from the Google Fonts API. And finally, NuxtUI automatically installs the Nuxt Color Mode module and configure Tailwind CSS to make the dark variant work. Since our components are styled with design tokens that work for both light and dark mode, you have nothing to do to support dark mode in your application. You can just create a color mode button using the use color mode composable to switch between light and dark mode. Now I want to talk a bit about NuxtUI Pro. It's a collection of premium Vue components built on top of NuxtUI. We've also rebuilt it from the ground up to take advantage of NuxtUI new features. And the major version has been increased from V1 to V3 to make it clear that NuxtUI Pro V3 is meant to be used with NuxtUI V3. I'm happy to share that this will be a free update, so the license you bought or will buy is compatible for both versions. NuxtUI Pro V3 only contains the components to build the NuxtUI documentation at the moment, but you can try it out by installing it like NuxtUI, but replacing all the UI occurrences by NuxtUI Pro, and it will automatically import the NuxtUI module for you. So to summarize, in the past 7 months, we've completely rebuilt NuxtUI from the ground up. In parallel, we worked on NuxtUI Pro V3 as we needed it to actually build the NuxtUI docs. It took a long time, especially because we made the typography by hand. We are no longer using the Tailwind CSS typography plugin, and this lets user customize the typography like any other component in the app config. It took a lot of time to write the documentation for every component from scratch, but it feels way better than before, and there is way more examples. Last month, we finally released the first alpha version of NuxtUI v3. We are already at the alpha 8 version with lots of improvements, and we'll continue shipping. We're now focused on finishing the NuxtUI Pro components so you can start migrating your projects. We also have to write the docs for NuxtUI Pro v3. Once this is done, we'll publish a complete migration guide for both NuxtUI and NuxtUI Pro and start migrating all of our applications. This might take a while because we have lots, like all the NuxtUI Pro templates, Nuxt.com, all the module documentation, NuxtHub, NuxtStudio, and so on. And unfortunately, I don't have a date for the official release of NuxtUI v3 because we depend on Tailwind CSS v4 alpha. We depend on Reka UI, which is the next major version of Radix Vue, which is also in alpha. And we'll only be able to make an official release once all these dependencies are stable. But we'll continue shipping until then, and we'll release as soon as possible. I hope this gave you a clear understanding of Nuxt UI v3. You can check the documentation on ui3.nuxt.dev and the source code on the v3 branch of the Nuxt UI GitHub repository. Thank you.
Splendid. Thank you, Benjamin. All right. Before we go into our next speaker, want to give a shout out to Vito. Thank you, Vito, for being one of our sponsors. Vito provides clean, easy to use hubs to give your attendees access to live streams, recordings, discussions, announcements, and schedules. You're in Vito Hub right now, and it's built on Vue. Yay. If you want to run Vito for one of your online events or add value to an in-person event, book a call with the Vito team at vi.to/4/event and explore the Vito community at Vito Community on X. So take a look there. And up next, we have Ahad Birung, a technical professional who is deeply involved in the Nuxt community. He'll be presenting on the state of Nuxt content. So this is definitely a session you won't want to miss. Welcome to the stage, Ahad.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for attending. Here, I'm going to talk about the state of the Nuxt content. Some of you might know me, but many of you might not. My name is Ahad Birang. I'm working at the Nuxt lab. I'm the maintainer of the Nuxt content and also contributor in the Nuxt and NJS organization. So what is the Nuxt content? Before we go through all the new features, we need to know what's Nuxt content. Nuxt content is a file-based content management system, which reads your source files from the content directory in your projects. The module reads and parses Markdown, YAML, JSON, and CSV files, and converts them to the readable format, which we call it AST, or Abstract Syntax Tree. In order to access all the contents in the production environment, Nuxt content stores all the parsed contents in an internal file-based data storage. The module provides a powerful query layer for your projects. The query layer in Nuxt 2 is similar to query syntax of MongoDB. Also in Nuxt version 2, we introduced Markdown component syntax, or MDC. MDC is a superset of Markdown that allows you to use Vue components inside Markdown files. You can pass attributes and properties to your Vue components in the inline format or using a rich YAML structure, just like front matter for the Markdown itself. Also, MDC allows you to pass different slots, the contents to different slots of your components, just like what we used to do in the Vue. And also nesting components inside each other. MDC has lots of more features, which can, for example, using MDC, you can add attributes to native Markdown syntax, like links. Currently, Nuxt contents have around 200K monthly downloads on the NPM. According to the GitHub, 30K projects depends on the Nuxt content. Almost 3.1K stars on the GitHub, and more than 200 contributors helps us to achieve what we have right now. In order to create Nuxt content version 3, we kept only the content parser logic and rebuilt everything else in order to achieve better development experience and higher performance. Here we are going to see some of the key features and new things the content module version 3 has. First, let's talk about the important content collections. Content collections are a way to manage your content in the application. Content collections help you to organize your contents, define a structure for your contents, and validate them. It also provides types for your data and font matter for your Markdown and YAML files, also other files. Let's assume we are building a website for commercial products. For a fully functional website, we have to create different type of pages. Surely we need some landing pages like main page or a landing page for a marketing campaign. Let's go simple and assume that we only have a title and the content for these pages. Next, we need some release pages to inform our customers about the latest changes of our product. A release should have a title, a release date might have a tag, a relative tag like LTR, LTS, or etc. And of course, main notes about the release. Next, we might have a blog posts. A blog post should have a title, the author or list of authors, might have a cover image, it has a publish date, and finally, it sure has an actual article. Traditionally, using the content v2, we were creating these different type of pages in different directories in our projects to make them maintainable and categorize them. We took the same idea and improved it in the content v3. Right now, for each of page types, we can create a collection. We can define a different schema for each of collections. And as a result, we will have a proper types for each collection in our application. Let's see how we can create collections. In order to create collections, we have created a new config file in the content module. We call it content.config.ts. Using this config file, you can expose your collections and define them. In order to define our very first collection, we can use a define collection utility from the Nuxt content. Every collection in the content module have a different types. Types determine how we going to use our contents in the collections. By setting type to page, we are telling Nuxt content that we are going to use these contents as a page in our websites. By doing so, Nuxt content will provide some default fields for us for this collection, like title, description, like body of the whole page, and the SEO methods. Next, we need to define the source for our collection. The sources are places that our real Markdown files, our pages, are going to be read. As you can see here, we are using a glob pattern to fetch the contents from blog directory. Glob patterns gives us more control over the input files, and it can be easily changed to import Markdown, YAML, JSON, or any files. And we can provide a schema for our collection. As you can see in the example, here we only define the cover, data, and the list of our authors. But blog post has the title and content. Those two fields will inherit from the page type from content module. And next, we can define our other collections. Now we have every collections we need to. We can go further and write our first blog post. So as you can see, This is our first blog post, and we can define our fields, the cover, date, and authors in the front matter of our file. The next important thing in the content module is that content module stores everything inside the relational database. A relational database helps us to separate the contents of each collection into different tables, which gives us, as a result, better performance in query. In the development mode and the server side, we are using SQLite. SQLite is great for development since it's lightweight and does not require any server or external services to start off for development. And creating a SQLite is easy as creating a file. However, in the production, we are supporting the famous relational databases like Postgres or Cloudflare D1 if you want to deploy your application into Cloudflare workers. You can still use a SQLite database in the production. In the client side, we did go further and we brought SQLite databases to the client side navigation. So now in client-side navigation, module will use in-memory SQLite database to search for contents. This technique will remove the round-trip time for fetching the contents from the server, and the content will be found faster. Next, let's talk about some utilities we are created in the content v3. As we saw before, Nuxt content stores contents in collections and uses relational database under the hood to do so. We created utility to simplify this query creation and execution. Query collection is aware of collection type, and the result is fully typed. Using the query collection navigation, we can create navigation tree for our collections. Using the surroundings utility, we can find the previous and next siblings of our current page, our current content. And finally, we are introducing new utility that splits content into different sections, different searchable sections. Using these sections, we can easily implement our own full text search with our favorite library. Nuxt version 3, Nuxt content version 3 comes with lots of improvement in performances and bundle size. First, an important one, that we moved all the reading and the parsing logic out of Nuxt runtime. The module now reads the file before starting the server, and the parsing happens even at the build time and before starting the server. This is important for the serverless environment since they have limited resources. For the same reason, we store the content dumps in a public asset rather than the server bundle. The dump size can grow with the increase of content files, and this is a big drawback for the big websites to deploy in the serverless environments. Using the relational databases in production reduces the CPU time of the application in the serverless environment. And minifying parse contents is another action we took to reduce the database size and network payload. Depends on the contents and the content of your contents, the type of your content. Minifying can reduce between 30 to 60% of the content size. Next, content version 2 is not all about the developers and development experience. There is also good news for non-developers, content editors. We are merging Nuxt content with Nuxt Studio to provide the best editing experience for non-tech users and better tooling for developers to provide such experience. So next time, you don't need to explain Markdown syntax to your colleagues. Anyone can edit content with our visual editor. So there are lots of seeing the change in Nuxt version 3. But with all we have seen till now, we can have a quick compare between Nuxt version 2 and see the improvement in Nuxt version 3. Landing files, loading files in the version 3 happens at the build time. And with the content collections, you have more control over the contents. And in other words, the files in the content version 3 are structured. Also, parsing logic moved out of the runtime. And with our minified ASD, the size of contents is smaller and the payload of the website is smaller. With the use of relational databases, there is no need to access to file system and store data in the server bundle. So server bundle will be smaller. And relational databases are optimized for querying data. That's what they do. So this will help us to improve the query performances. And also using the external services for querying will reduce the CPU time of our application. So what's next? These are what we've done in the Nuxt content till now, but there is a lot to do in the content V3. With the power of relational databases, we can create relations between the collections. Imagine having a collection of authors that can connect to your articles, or assigning a relative topics to documentation. With the new features, with the new syntax in the collections schema, we can achieve this. Also, every now and then, users ask about how we can parse a specific field as a markdown. For example, the description of the page. They want to use markdown in the description of the page. Well, I have the good news. With the power of the collections, we can now mark a field in the data as a markdown field. And Nuxt content will automatically parse this field with the markdown and MDC syntax. Build time validations will make sure that the contents contain everything we need at the runtime. We can mark fields as optional, and all the non-optional fields will be required at the build time. And if they are missing, the build will fail. Also, Nuxt content and MDC module has a VS Code extension. Now, our VS Code extensions can leverage collections schema to provide suggestions for markdown files inside the VS Code. Last but not least, with the integration of the Nuxt Hub and using the feature of Nuxt Hub migrations, content module can update the production database during the CI pipelines. This is important to update database before actually running the application in the serverless environment. This is improve the performance of the cold start in the serverless environment tremendously. Check out the content3.nuxt.dev website for the documentation and check out the V3 branch for the source of the content V3. Give us some feedbacks to improve the content V3 and reach the best performance as possible.
Hey,
Thank you for your attention.
did you have a few slides towards the end? We weren't sure if you had ended your share screen before your slide deck was done.
Oh, can I share it now? Good.
Yeah,
I
just to
don't
make if you want to reshare it, just to make sure that we didn't miss anything for you.
know.
It sounded like it was your last couple slides. Yeah, your thank you. If you want to go back a few slides and do that again, we I think this is about the slide that we were at when it disappeared.
Okay, this one, the MDC field, so
Yeah,
field
so
time
maybe if you
animations.
can share your deck in Veto, if you have a link to it, just so that way everybody can check it out. We don't want
Yeah,
them to miss any of those details or how to reach out to you.
so I will share the slides afterwards.
Perfect. Thank you. We do have a few questions for you.
Yeah.
All right. So, can the source be an external API? How to set up the configuration in this case?
So yeah, exactly. The sources, the main source of the Nuxt content is file storages, but we also have the Git repository, is source for our collections. For example, Nuxt.com right now uses a Git repository as a source. We will have the same in the content version 3, and also in future there will be a possibility to write a custom collections and custom sources. For example, some sources might be used to fetch the WordPress contents, WordPress articles, and provide it for the next content.
Great. Thank you. All
But
right.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
no, go
Sorry.
on.
Didn't mean to cut you off.
Now, but right now, even before we are going to implement those helpers, the sources structure in the next content is simply some configs. So if you have external API, you can fetch your contents, store it in a dump, a dummy, a template directory, and use that directory to feed the Nuxt content database.
Great. Thank you. Um, all right. Next one. Does Nuxt content work with Nuxt SPAs?
Yes. Uh, as I told you in the slides, we are using SQLite in the browser. So with this feature, in the SPA mode, the Nuxt content will fetch the whole dump of your database. And from that point, everything we need to navigate between in the sites exists in the client side and in the browser. So it's perfect for SPA modes.
Thank you. All right. Last question. How does Nuxt content handle large scale deployments, particularly at the edge?
So like I said, in the content v3, we removed everything, almost everything from the server bundle and kept the rendering part in the server bundle. And for most of the parts, we optimize it to work smoothly and with low overhead on the serverless environments. The dump will live now in the public assets, which is a big improvement for the serverless environments. So basically in the server environments right now, when the request hit to the server, we get the file from the public, we get the dump from public assets, load it, and the cold start is way faster than before because this dump is compressed, it's small sized, and also with use of the databases like D1, for example, in the Cloudflare storage or Postgres storage for the Vercel, it's only the first time when you need to fetch the dump and import it to the database. The next hits will retrieve the data right from the database.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your
Yeah,
time today, Ahad. We greatly
thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
All right, y'all. We got to talk about some giveaways and those type of things before we go to break. So, in Vito, go check out you'll see on the left side there'll be the 3 bars if you're not already in this area. Go click on giveaways to also follow along and find out more. Like spot the secret 3. There's ducks. There's rubber ducks. go find the rubber ducks. I'm very excited about the rubber ducks. Attention to detail pay off. 3 ducks are cleverly concealed throughout the conference space. Spot them all, and you might just win training worth $300. So definitely go find the ducks. They are pretty hidden, I will give you that, but go search. Definitely go search. And every developer has a story. What's yours? Do the DevStack Story Challenge. We want to see how your journey started. Pick 3 to 4 items that represent your coding story, snap a photo, and share it on X and tag NuxtNation and NuxtNation24. The most creative entry will win a prize worth $300. So go ahead, show us what makes your developer journey unique. And yesterday, here is our winner of on Hans. So definitely go check it out. And then also post-event survey. Yes, give us feedback and give us feedback at the end so that way we can do better next time. You can win up to $300 worth of Vue goodies. Now, go to break, drop your links on how to connect with each other in the chat while we're gone. Make sure to check out Bitterbrains and what they're doing with their current campaign, and see you back after break. Bye.
Are you ready?